Heading now live to London, Natasha Hausdorff is joining us, barrister and international law expert, director of UK Lawyers for Israel. Thank you very much, Ms. Hausdorff, for joining us. Well, I feel that we really need to begin our conversation by setting things straight before we even talk about what is next, because we are talking at least 12 UNRWA workers taking active part in the murders and kidnapping of October 7th, others providing ammunition, indication UNRWA facilities were used for terror. This is not gray zone. This is bloody red.
It's also only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, when we consider the 3,000 terrorists that crossed the border on the 7th of October, according to the UN's own statistics as to education and schooling, 3 out of 4 of those terrorists that crossed the border, whatever banner they coalesced under, be it Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Fatah, 3 out of 4 of them would have been educated in the UNRWA school system, according to the Palestinian Authority curriculum. And of course, the issues with UNRWA have been consistently called out. There is nothing new here. NGOs such as UN Watch, NGO Monitor, Impact SE, that has done consistent work outing the incitement in UNRWA textbooks that are being used in UN schools. All of this, unfortunately, is nothing new, but it is extraordinary that these measures have taken so long, that the international community has been willfully blind to the complicity of UNRWA personnel in terrorism and the devastating impact of the UNRWA indoctrination system that we saw on full display on the 7th of October. So as I say, not new, too little too late, but at least now the message finally does seem to be getting through, and it's clear that the information will continue to be put forth to the highest authorities across all of those countries. I know UN Watch and Hillel Neuer is intending on addressing Congress in the coming days on their latest report that saw a chat of some 3,000 UNRWA teachers containing the glorification of terrorism. There are serious questions that finally do require answers. It doesn't seem likely that we'll be getting them from the UN or their spokespeople anytime soon.
Yes, and don't hold your breath when it comes to UN action or lack thereof when it comes to UNRWA. But interestingly enough, Ms. Hausdorff, there are reports that Israel is holding a whole lot of information on UNRWA's malicious operations, but is avoiding from publishing it simply because it is one of the last remaining functioning organizations in the Gaza Strip. But is the lesser of evil not evil?
It's a difficult position, and Israel consistently finds itself in difficult positions. There are other humanitarian organizations that have unfortunately also reportedly been infiltrated by Hamas. So in that respect, UNRWA is not alone. But there is an additional evil connected with UNRWA, and that is to do with its very founding. Actually, a point, an analysis that was made very forcefully and articulately in the book, The War of Return, by Einat Wilf and Adi Schwartz, that called out the very founding of UNRWA as seeking to perpetuate the 1948 attempted war of extermination against Israel, and the perpetuation of generation upon generation of so-called refugees, specifically by this body, a definition of refugee that does not apply to any other person other than Palestinians. That is part and parcel of the deep-seated, deeply rooted causes of what we have seen, combined with the indoctrination, which has been so consistently called out. And the real changing point here, I think, is the sense that the international community and, importantly, UN figures can no longer pretend to be blind to this. I mean, only a few days ago, we had this absurd assertion that the tunnels were, for some reason, new to UN staff and UNRWA staff in particular. And that flew in the face of a number of reports that had been made directly to the United Nations, setting out concerns about the tunnel systems region that Hamas was operating, and how in the past, of course, we've seen UN-run clinics being used as cover for the openings of tunnels, and we know the situation at the moment with UN schools and with other shelters that are operating throughout the Gaza Strip. This is not just a part of the problem, this is the very center of it.
Yes, and that obviously has a lot to do with the quote-unquote denazification process the Palestinian society will have to undergo at some point if we are looking at a better mutual future here in the region. And Natasha Hausdorff, before we conclude, we cannot, of course, ignore the legal context of the UNRWA terror snowball, if you will, The Hague. And there's more coming because, the ICJ discussed what's happening in the Gaza Strip. In a few weeks, it is set to discuss what is happening in the West Bank. So all eyes remain on Israel.
It's important to remember, of course, that the International Court of Justice is the UN court, and many have called out the difficulties with UN bodies across the spectrum, the anti-Israel bias that exists there. Unfortunately, increasingly, we are seeing this infect international legal institutions associated with the United Nations, and the International Court of Justice is no different. You're absolutely right that the original case, as it were, brought against Israel in the context of a referral by the General Assembly for what is called an advisory opinion from the court as to Israel is due to be heard in the next couple of weeks, and that saga will continue. What we are witnessing is a perpetuation of lawfare, and that is the abuse of these international legal institutions against Israel. It is another plank, if you will, of a continuing war against the Jewish state, and it is one that is done with pseudo legal language. But unfortunately, I wouldn't be holding our breath to see the law be properly applied in the context of what we expect from this advisory opinion. Given the way that the question was phrased, even by the General Assembly to the International Court of Justice, we can see exactly what it is that those countries that were leading that resolution are hoping to achieve. And as I say, it is the perpetuation of lawfare against the Jewish state.
This is perhaps the root of the frustration here, that albeit the hypocrisy here is clear. Israel and those who support it simply cannot allow themselves to dismiss or give up the battle in these arenas as well. Natasha Hausdorff, barrister and international law expert, director of UK Lawyers for Israel. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.